unhealthy ecosystems. And we're also going to be looking at the work of Amos Ferguson and the repetition and patterns that are very common in his pieces, actually what his pieces are most well known for. We're going to do a very quick presentation, just look at some photos, talk a little bit about it, and then we're going to start making some art. Here we are. My screen kind of catch it. All right, so let's talk a bit about ecosystems. What is an ecosystem? For those of you who are at this point in your science class, you'll be able to answer this in a minute, I'm sure. But for those of you who aren't there yet, an ecosystem is a community where different living things live together and depend on each other for their survival. So when you think about marine ecosystem, the same as this picture we're looking at, in that ecosystem we see fish. Right now we just see one kind of fish, but there's lots of other fish hiding in those corals. We see coral. Actually, if you go down, you'll see a fish here is kind of hiding, camouflage. There's two more here. There's eels, there are crabs, there are little shrimp. There are all kinds of animals and plants and even little bacteria and algae. So that's that green stuff that grows on, green and brown stuff that grows on the surface of coral sometimes. Those are also there, and they're really important because different animals feed on them and different animals feed on the other animals and so on. So you're looking at the cycle of life. We all need to eat in order to live. And ecosystems, healthy ecosystems, are able to sustain, to keep all of those living beings alive, living things alive in that community. And this is really important because if fish don't have anything to eat, then we don't have fish to eat, right? Very, very simple food chain. So the fish have to eat something, the things the fish eat have to eat something. We eat the fish is one of important part of our diet here in the Bahamas. And if we don't have the fish, then that's one big thing that we don't have to keep us healthy and well nourished. So this is a healthy ecosystem. What does an unhealthy marine ecosystem look like? It's a little fuzzy, but you can see there's hardly any fish. Everything's covered in brown stuff. It looks a little bit like a desert. So this is a place where the corals have died. And when corals die, the fish leave, or for the fish that depend completely on corals to keep them alive because they're their homes, is where their food lives, all the rest of that, those fish also die. And this is a problem because then you have more and more fish dying or leaving an area, which means that your entire marine system ends up being completely destroyed. And you can see even the water looks different. It's not that pretty blue anymore we saw over here because all of these animals and plants help to keep the water clean. So you can imagine if the water's all ugly and fuzzy like that, do you really want to go swimming in that? And all of the corals, look at them. They're white. They're covered in this brown stuff. It's not nice. And a lot of this happens for a couple of reasons. It's pollution. So you have people who are on boats throwing garbage in the water, and all of that garbage ends up following the currents and ends up being amassed or found in the same area, and it blocks light from the corals that are on the ocean floor. And corals, they're also living beings. They need light to live. So if they can't get light, they're going to die. Another reason is if a coral reef is close to where there's something like a golf course, and all of the fertilizer that they're putting on the golf course is getting into the water, it can cause this brown stuff, this algae that's normally good in small quantities, to grow a lot, and it covers the coral and it suffocates them. And now another reason, so it's a third reason that these corals turn white, it's called coral bleaching, is when the water gets too hot. So this, if you've heard people talking about climate change, This is one of the results of climate change. When the water temperature rises a half a degree, 1 degree, just a small change, and it gets too hot for these living animals, these living plants to live, and so they die. And it's all connected, all connected. And we are a country where most of our territory, most of the Bahamas is just water. So can you imagine if our marine life is destroyed? We'd really be in a sorry state. Now and of course you have the scientists here who is down here documenting the death of these corals, because a lot of scientists are really paying attention to what's going on, and they're documenting it to help people to understand why we have to take better care of our environment and our oceans. Now let's talk about mangroves. Mangroves are really important in the Bahamas. I'm sure you've seen these before. You've heard about how important mangroves are. And this is a healthy mangrove ecosystem. You see there's fish in the roots. There's this seagrass around here. Animals are living in that. Everything's nice and green. The water is clear. And it's really important, not just because they're nurseries for animals like fish, and birds and other marine life. They also help to clean the water of pollutants that may drift out into the sea and kill those corals we were talking about. It also helps with flooding when we have really, really bad storms. So by keeping our mangroves healthy, we can actually help to stop a lot of the flooding that happens when a hurricane comes. So if you hear anybody talking about digging up, filling in a mangrove to turn it into a hotel or a apartment complex, you're still young, but you're going to get older one day, and you're going to be able to say why it's important that we take care of them. Now let's look at an unhealthy mangrove swamp. Mangrove. It's become a true swamp. You see this? It's not the best picture, but you see everything is dead. It's all muddy. It's gray. The plants are all you see are sticks. Nothing can live there. And this is a real tragedy, because now that buffer that we were talking about to help with flooding, that environment that helped to clean the water of pollutants before it went out to sea, that space, that was an important place for baby fish, for baby birds, for other young animals and plants that depend on mangroves to help them to grow big enough before they go into the ocean or before they leave to go elsewhere. It's gone. And as more and more of these ecosystems are destroyed and die, more and more of the animals and plants that depend on them for their lives are also dying as well. And that's a problem for us, because we benefit from this too, right? Now, let's talk about what we're going to make today. And of course, if you have questions, I'm going to answer all of them as we go through. Give me 1 minute. Here we are. So I saw a question pop up. Okay, it was already answered. Great. So let's talk about what we're making today. We are going to be inspired by a very famous artist. His name is Amos Ferguson. For those of you who are curious, he's dead. He's not alive. But even when he was alive, he was very famous. So he's what we call an intuitive artist, or a folk artist. And that means that he's self-taught, and he really he never went to art school. He never had any kind of formal training. No one taught him how to paint and draw. So his approach was very much based on the way he saw the world and the way he wanted to show that world in his paintings. And he made a lot of paintings in his lifetime. And what's really amazing, what really stands out about his work is that you see that all the colors are flat, perfectly flat and even. He used to paint houses before he started painting pictures. And all of his paintings tell a story. They all have a story. So if you've ever heard about Amos Ferguson before, if you've ever seen any of his paintings, he'll tell stories about mermaids or about what happened in the church, or a lot of Bible stories. Here, he's talking about an ecosystem with fish. So we have conch here. We have these fish here look a lot like angelfish. I'm sure that these are snappers and shads. That looks like a gray shad right there for those of you who like to go fishing. And you'll see that he's chosen about 1, 2, 3, 4 sea objects, sea things, and he's done multiples of them. We call that repetition, when you take one thing and you repeat it several times. Something else that we see is that he's showing how the water is moving by putting these lines in place to show that the water is going up and around. It's a very energetic painting. It shows that the sea is always moving. It's healthy, it's happy, and the fish and the conch, they're also happy. This is a depiction really of a healthy ecosystem where there's lots of fish, because you see this painting is full. Barely anything else could fit. A lot of fish. There's more than one kind of sea life, and the water is moving. It's not still, it's not sluggish, it's nice and clean and blue. It doesn't have a bunch of muddy stuff in. And he uses, if you see here, he also shows texture by using patterns. So you see these lines here, you almost feel as if you could touch it and it'll feel a little rough. So he's very well known for painting in a very flat, even way, but he's also very well known for his repetition. And again, that's objects that are repeated in a painting, in an artwork, several times. And we do that to create what we call impact. So now you have a focal point. So the conch are big and they're bright pink. So they are the things that we see first. And then we see the yellow and the gray. So Amos Ferguson has made it very clear what he wants us to focus on first, and then second, and then of course last with the gray. And we're not going to recreate this exactly, but we are going to use this as inspiration for our artwork. And if you have questions as we go along, of course, please ask them. But also, if you feel like you may be falling behind a bit, do not worry at all. This video will be up on YouTube for a long time, and you can always go back and watch it again, or go back to the part where you fell a little behind and you can catch up. So let's just follow along and let's make some art. Okay, I'm going to leave. So Okay, so small pause, because now we're going to be making some actual art now that we've talked about it a bit. And you're going to need a sheet of drawing paper like this. If it's smaller, that's fine. If it's bigger, that's fine. But you want to hold it horizontally. So horizontally is what I like to call the Y thing. Right here, horizontal. So you need one of these. And you can have more if you feel like you might need a backup in case you want to change it. You start making something and you don't really like it. You also need markers, a pencil. We'll use it a little bit, not a lot. Crayons, construction paper, so as many colors as you have, so you have lots of options. Glue and scissors. Now I have a big scissors, my hands are bigger. Your hands are smaller. If your hands are smaller, you could definitely use a smaller scissors, and of course be very careful. Scissors are sharp, so when you hold it, remember your thumb goes through the small part, your other fingers goes through the bigger part, and you always point it away from yourself. Never cut towards you, okay? And you never cut towards somebody else. So always be very careful, and never put your fingers in the way, because no matter how dull it may look, it is quite sharp. I'm going to use a bigger scissors. My hands are much bigger. So, small scissors will make my fingers cramp a little bit. So let's get started. I also have a couple templates here because we're going to be making fish. And I want each of you to be able to choose your favorite fish. So here I have some tropical fish. You can draw these along with me. or you can draw your own fish, but you have choices, okay? We also have some corals here as well, but we're definitely going to be using these. So we have 3 different kinds of coral. We'll talk about this in a minute, but this is also about choices, because each of your pieces is going to be unique because you are a unique person. So yours is not going to look like mine, and mine is not going to look like yours, and that's totally fine. Wonderful. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our paper. Again, you see I'm holding it the wide way horizontally, and we're going to fold it in half. So line up your edges really well, and then press them. So you get a nice straight line. There you go. That's the first step. Very easy. Now we're going to go ahead and take this and put it to the side. But again, you can do the same with your extra paper. Now, once you've done that, you're going to be using markers a lot because we want to commit to what we are drawing. We always commit to what we are drawing. So you don't have to rub out every line that you make. It's okay to accept your lines. First thing we're going to do now is get a nice black marker. And we are going to draw. You see where you have that seam right there where you bent it, where you folded it. You're going to take that black marker and you're going to draw a line right down that seam. Now my hand is pretty straight. It's okay if your hand's not as straight. Just do your best. As long as you're dividing the paper in half, it's totally fine. Now there's another step. Next step is we're going to draw what we call a horizon line. So if you looked at when you saw the Amos Ferguson painting that was about fish and conch, you would have seen the sky up here and the sea down here. Well, that line where the sky meets the sea is called the horizon line. So we are going to draw that. Now we're not going to divide that down. We're not going to draw it in the middle of the paper because we want most of our piece to be about what's happening in the sea, under the water. So we're just going to do a small bit of sky at the top of the page. So we're going to go up, I would say, if you want to use your finger to measure, maybe, your finger's a little smaller than mine. You have like really tiny fingers, so you can use your whole finger as a measuring point. If your hand is almost as big as mine, maybe you want to go to about like your second knuckle right there. And you can draw a little line to help you out. All right. So very quick measuring. But whatever you do, you want to leave as much space for water as possible and only a little bit of space for the sky. Now, once you've decided where you are going to put that horizon line, you're going to draw a line. So no rulers, all freehand. So if you're using a ruler, you're cheating. No rulers. Because remember, the sea is not flat. The sea is always a little wavy. So if your line's a little wavy, that is totally fine. That's even better. So I have that on one side. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Now you're wondering, why in the world are we doing this? We thought we were just going to do one picture. Looks like we're doing 2. Yes, we are. So we're doing kind of like a mirror image. So on one side, we're going to have a healthy underwater ecosystem. And on the other side, we're going to have an unhealthy underwater ecosystem so that we can see what happens when we don't take care of our environment. So this is unhealthy on one side, healthy on the other side. And this nice thick black line separates them. Now, we get to do some coloring. You can use, now I'm going to tell you, use whichever color you want. You can stick to the sea being blue, dark blue, and the sky being light blue. If you want the sea to be green, make it green. If you want it to be purple, make it purple. It's fine. This is your piece. We want this to be as fun and exciting as possible because what's going to make these ecosystems healthy and unhealthy is that on this side, we're going to have lots of sea life. And on this side, we're going to have some dead looking sea life and some garbage, right? So it's okay if you have fun with your colors. It does not have to be realistic at all. We're not even trying to be realistic. We are just having fun. So I'm actually going to go with, I think I want a green sky, because why not? And I'm going to, what should I do? Maybe a green sky and some, well, I like the turquoise. So I'll do the turquoise water. This is actually blue-green. All right, all the colors. Now, if you are not a big crayon fan, you can also use coloring pencils. Now, when we color, here's what's really important. You want to make sure that your coloring is flat. So you don't want to be scratchy, because remember, we're being inspired by Ferguson. So his colors were always very flat. So we're trying to do the same thing. So I'm going to start by coloring my sky, and it's going to be green on both sides and blue on both sides. Now, if you want to change up your colors to say, well, the unhealthy side is not going to have as pretty colors, you can do that too. I'm choosing not to, but you could choose to change it up. So I'm going to color away. My table has some texture, so you can see it's looking a little rough. And that's pretty interesting, as a matter of fact, because that just adds a bit more character to the work. So you can see I'm just turning my paper around however I need it to color it however I want. So you don't have to, you can put your paper in whatever direction you need to put it in to be able to work. There are no rules about this. The only thing you're trying to do is to make your coloring as flat as possible. Now, a trick to doing that, if you find that just coloring in one direction still looks kind of scratchy, you can color in one direction and then color right over the same spot in the other direction. And it starts to look really, really flat. Now, see that? It's not too bad. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So remember, you can go as funky as you want your colors. You can use some realistic looking colors. If you want a light blue sky and dark blue water, go for it. If you want a pink sky and purple water, go for it. All right, so that's my sky. Still a little messy. I didn't tell so my crayon's still alive. Still has a bit of a point. I don't think that's going to be the same case for my turquoise though. So let's go ahead and color that in. Now I'm sure you're wondering, well, if I'm coloring this turquoise is coming out so dark, how am I going to get those white lines on it? We're not going to be putting white lines on it, but we are going to get some lines on it, and we're going to use markers. But those come afterwards. I'm jumping ahead of myself. And if you feel your arm hurting a bit, because this takes a lot of arm action to get this done, you can take a break. Remember what I said, you can always go back to any parts that you may have fallen behind on and watch the video again. There you go. So make sure you get straight to the edge. Straight to the edge, very important. And then after we're done with this coloring, we're going to start making some conch and fish, coral. Now, mind you, you don't have to use conch. If you want to make crabs, you can draw some crabs too. If you feel comfortable drawing some crabs. But if you want to draw a crawfish, you can certainly draw a crawfish. There's nothing saying that you have to do the exact same thing. Just remember, this is your piece, and you want it to be unique to you. And then, of course, you can follow along with me as well, and you can choose different colors for your conch, because you're not sticking to realistic colors at all. We're having a lot of fun with this. But what we want to do is show sea life that can actually be found in the Bahamas, right? So we know you can find fish, you can find conch, you can find sea cucumbers and sea urchins and lots of coral, right? sharks. We have lots of sharks. We have jellyfish. So you can put some jellyfish in there if you want to. All right, that's one second. Wow, my fingers are hurting. Are your fingers hurting? Mine have got me hurting. I'm gonna shake them out a little bit. All right, and I need to peel my crayon so I can get to the rest of it. So yes, you can peel your crayon. The crayon is still alive, even though you've taken it down to the paper. There we go. And let's go again, next side. You know, notice something, I'm not doing this. If you're doing that, you're going to be coloring here forever, okay? You just hold the end and you just go. You can hold on. Especially if you have a nice big sheet of paper, you don't have to worry about going too far off the page. And if you color off the page a bit, it's fine. You know, I hope you're working somewhere where you can clean the crayon up. So parents, I apologize for any scratches that might end up on your kitchen table. All right. Now, you see, as I get closer to that horizon line, I go slow because I want to take the time to not go over that line. I want the sea and the sky to be completely separate. That's why I drew that line. And you notice I'm coloring in different directions here too. I'm trying to get that some of that flatness we spoke about. And remember, this is only the beginning. We have a lot more to do. All right, almost there, almost there. So this is probably the longest part of this because otherwise we just have a lot of drawing and cutting out and pasting to do. All right. And coming to the end of this, finally, my arm is really hurting now, so I'm sure yours is too. It's a lot of color. Get right down to the end. Make sure we fill in all those white spaces. And we are, look at that. Done. First step. Second step. Now we get to draw things. So I'm going to start with my fish and my conch. But I'm going to need some construction paper. Now I have pink here and I have red. I'm going to make a conch, two conchs, and I'm going to, oh, I had a black marker.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. I'm going to put this on the side for a minute so I don't end up drawing any lines on there. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my first conch. Now you don't, in this case, because the construction paper is so soft and you don't want to scratch all over it, if you want to, you can use a pencil. So I'll use a pencil along with you. And this is just our first outline. Now think about how big your spaces are. Think about how big your spaces are. So we want two conch on here, right? So, you know, you could use your hands to help you measure. So we're going to do the conch first because those are the biggest things on our picture plane. So this is your picture plane here. So remember, we divide this into two sides. You have two conch here, and then we put the fish and the coral around it. So it's really important that you give yourself an idea of how big your conch needs to be. You could use your hand to help you, you know, like I'm going like this and say, okay, well, maybe I need to keep it within here to help me out. Again, if I'm moving fast, don't worry, you can keep up. So we're starting with a curved line. And then we do another curved line, it's super easy. And then another curved line, because hunks are curvy. And we go in, look at that, not so bad, right? And another curved line, so it's almost like spikes, right? And what's really great about this is it doesn't have to be perfect. See, that's your first one. Very, very first one. You know, I have a line that I don't want right there. Now you can't rub too much, construction paper will tear. Now that I have this one, I don't have to worry about drawing the other one freehand. I'm going to cut this out and trace it on it. Now take your time. You have a smaller scissors than mine, you're probably finding it very easy to get in all these little small spots. All right, first count done. Now let's trace around to get our second count. Wasn't that easy? So easy. Now let's just trace, put it down on the pink again. And remember, you don't have to use pink. If you don't have pink, it's okay. Use a different color. You know, the important thing here is you don't want to use the same colors on top of each other. So you don't want them to blend. You want them to stand out. So because we want the conch to be our focal point, the first thing that people see when they look at our drawing, at our picture, then we are using a light color. So a color that will really stand out against whatever your background is over here. So you see that? See how that pink stands out? Can't miss that. It's the first thing you see. So you don't want to put blue on blue or purple on purple or red on red because they're just all going to look the same. So what we're doing is we're creating something called contrast. You're home, you're listening to me, you could say it after me. Contrast. A contrast is when you put two different colors or two very different things together so that they stand out. So the one thing stands out from the other. So it's like putting black against a white background. Black will stand out. It's like putting white against a black background. Black, white will stand out. So very simple. So contrast is when we use either color or size, or maybe even the way an object looks to make one of them stand out. One of those things stand out. Okay, so here we are. We have our conch. Look at that. Next step, let's get some glue. So here we go. See how fast that was? So the coloring is the longest thing. Now, don't go too crazy with the glue. You don't want to get too messy. Just gently put a nice line along the side and put a little bit in the middle. See what I did there? You don't need a ton of glue. And you stick it down where you want it to go. Now I want mine up here. Now, if you want yours like one down to the bottom and one up to the top, you can do that. But I'm going to put mine at the top here. Let's do it again. A little bit in the middle, just a little bit, not too much. You don't want to use too much glue because again, it's really wet and icky. And then the paper gets really damp and doesn't look quite as nice anymore. So there you go, it's the beginning of my conch. Now, why do I have this red paper here? I want to put some red here in this spot here to show where the inside of the conch shell is, because you know how the conch shell is. You have the lip that flares and the whole outer shell, and then on this inside lip is this beautiful bright pink that goes really dark the further you get in the shell. Now I'm going to have to guesstimate the size on this. So I'm going to start by just cutting out a square, small square. And I'm going to just go into that spot. You know, I'm just playing a little bit. Again, this is not perfection. This is not about perfection. And I'm going to just eyeball it to create, and again, another curve. Just another curve, it's fine. That follows the shape of the conch shell. See that? And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the conch shell. I'm just going to cut that out. And then I'm going to trace it so I can have two. Cut that out again. So this practice, what I'm doing right now, what we're doing together right now is called collage. When you take a bunch of paper and you stick it together in different shapes and sizes to create a picture. That's what we call a collage. So we're learning a lot of stuff today. We're learning about ecosystems, what's a healthy ecosystem, what's an unhealthy ecosystem, and I'm going to stick it down. We're learning about, you see that? Change the way that conch shell looks. So we're talking about healthy ecosystems versus unhealthy ecosystems and why it's important to have a healthy ecosystem, how you can help to be a part of that, understanding why those ecosystems are important. And when you are old enough, or even now, you can start talking to your parents about why it's important that we don't fill in the mangroves, why it's important that we don't throw garbage in the ocean, right? Why it's important that we make sure that we're not putting a bunch of chemicals in the water. So those are really important conversations to have. Why it's important that we don't have cars that have a lot of exhaust going into the atmosphere because it contributes to climate change, which causes the sea temperature to go up, which causes the corals to die. So we all have a part to play in this. Now, there are my conch shells. Next step, we're going to draw some fish. I'm going to get some yellow. Maybe, sure, let's do yellow. Oh, what just happened? Oh. So we're going to draw some fish, right? Now, these are going to be some really, really simple fish. I'm not drawing any complicated fish, and you don't have to draw any complicated fish either. Now, I'm not going to do exactly what Amos Ferguson did. I'm going to make my fish a little bit different, just a tiny bit. The fish are really easy to draw because all you're starting with is a curved line. Now, again, keep in mind, your conch are supposed to be the biggest marine, marine animals on your page. So the fish cannot be as big as the conch, because remember, we want the conch to be our focal point. So, if you need help figuring out how big your fish need to be, you can take your paper and hold it up against your conch and be like, that's the conch, that's how long it is. So I'm just gonna make my yellow fish just a little smaller. See, that's okay. And you go ahead, you have something to help you measure, and you can draw some fish. So we can go ahead and start with a curved line, because fish have bodies, right? And they have mouths, so 2 lines for mouths, right? Another curved line for the bottom. And then they have fins. Now you can have an Amos Ferguson fin, right? Or you can have a fin like this. So you can play with it a bit. I think I'm going to add a fin on in a different color because I feel like that's fun. And I'm going to probably add another color fin on this side in a different color because I also believe that's fun. And I'll use my marker to put in the eyes and the rest. So I'm just starting with this shape for now. Just for now, because this is what I want. It's my picture, so I get to make decisions. Isn't that fun? You get to make decisions about where you want things to go and how you want them to look. Because at the end of the day, your artwork is an expression of how you feel and your thoughts and your ideas. So here we are, cut that out. And I want about, I don't know, maybe I want about 6 of these. So I'm just going to trace them. It's 1, 2. Well, maybe we'll stop at 4 because I'm thinking that this is going to get pretty crowded in a minute. So I'm just only going to do one more kind of fish here because this is getting pretty crowded. You know, I'm probably going to put that one up there. And I'm going to go ahead and cut those out real quick. Now I'm also going to use red with this yellow as well for the fins. Just because, you know, we're talking about our repetition. So if you repeat a color in your picture, it begins to tie the entire picture together. So when people look at it, they see some of the same colors shown in different places. Not to the point where it gets boring and everything starts to look the same, but to the point where it just looks like it all belongs together. So we call that being cohesive. We call that a cohesive composition. When you look at a picture and all of the things in the picture look like they belong together, they belong there. And we use color as a way to help us to do that. All right, so you see, I'm having a lot of fun here because this is how fish move in the water, right? So I'm just gonna go right ahead and stick these down. And again, you can do this however you want, but you see, I'm trying to create a lot of movement because fish move in the water. So I have these moving around my conch, right? So I can do that. And again, your fish don't have to look like mine. You can choose to do something just a little different. Now, let's draw some fins, some tail fins, and some side fins. I'm sure they're not called side fins, but that's what we call them today. So the tail fins are just triangles. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw some triangles. And these here, the side fins, you know, they're just 2 curved lines, a little bit like a fish body, right? Now I'm going to draw mine quickly because I can look at these and see basically what size I want them to be. You can cut them out and use them as templates the way we did for these. So I need 4 tail fins. Again, they're just triangles. And I need 4 side fins. 2 curved lines together. They're like an eye. Okay, now you want to cut down. And that's pretty quick. Yeah, it's just triangle. So once you get them cut out, and I know we're running a bit out of time, so I'm just going to show you all how to make one more fish very quickly, and you can do more of them if you want, and then we're going to make the coral. Well, actually, I'm looking at the time. We're just going to do the coral, but you can make, I would ask you to do one more fish. Choose one more kind of fish. Maybe I make another 2 or 3 of them. and add them to the healthy side of your ecosystem. Because we're going to need to move on to the unhealthy side of our ecosystem, which has a lot less stuff than our healthy side. So you don't have to stop where I'm stopping. You can add more, but you have a pretty good idea of how to make your hump and how to make your fish. And of course, you can go back and look at those templates I showed you in the video to see if there are fish that you want to try to make. Now here we are. So I'm going to stick on some tail fins. Very easy. Boom. Look at that. And put on some side fins, you see? Now it looks like a fish. Tail fins and side fins, there we are. Now we're going to give these fish some eyes and gills. We're just going to use our markers for that. So I'm going to use a red marker and whatever color you use. So if you chose to make your fish light blue, you might want to use a purple marker or a dark blue marker so you can see it against the blue. I didn't stick that down. How about that? Because I use yellow and I want to create that contrast we were talking about, I'm using the red because it really stands out against the yellow. There we go. If you find that your fins are curling up a little bit like mine, you could add a little bit of glue and just a little bit more glue, just stick it down really hard. All right, so let's give this some eyes and gills, because fish need gills to breathe. So your eyes just a dot, very easy, and your gills are just curved lines. 1, 2, 3, super easy, right? Now we didn't put anything on. We didn't put any fins on the top or the bottom. So because we're running out of time, I'm just going to draw them in really quickly. You can cut them out and add them if you want, okay? Because fish need these things to be able to move through the water. You see how different that looks? It looks like a fish. The dot, curved lines, and then you can just add, and they're just triangles, more triangles. So fish really is just a thing that looks like an eye and a bunch of triangles. So if anybody ever asks you what you can draw, you can say, I can draw a fish. There you go. So I get our gills in. You use 2, 3, whichever ones. And really it's a choice how you want to do this. If you want to cut out paper and stick it down to make these fins, you can go right ahead. If you want to use your markers, you can go right ahead. Either one is totally fine. All right, so that's our fish. Look at that. It's already looking like a picture. Now, coral. Let's get some coral in here. So I'm going to use the white for our dead coral on this side. So I'm going to put that on the side there. But for our happy coral on this side, I'm going to use some purple. Because why not? So the first thing I'm going to do, I need to put a bottom on the ocean, the way Mr. Ferguson did. Amos Ferguson did. So I'm just going to draw a hump. Like that's all it really is. A hump. There you go. Now the hump I do for the other side, I'm just going to do that in brown because the other side is an unhealthy ecosystem. The coral are dead. So we're going to go ahead and show that real quick. All right, let's stick that down. You see how this is coming together? We're just pasting a bunch of paper together and it's suddenly coming together to make a picture. So that's one. So maybe our coral can be three. Because why not? So coral is really easy to draw. You can see which one you want. I'm going to say that I believe this one is Elkhorn coral. So any scientists who are watching this, please excuse me. Not a scientist. I know a little bit about science. I like nature shows. So I think this is called Elkhorn coral, but either way, it's coral. So you can choose which one of these you want to add to your picture. I'm going to keep it really simple, and I'm going to draw this one. So that's going on the side here. So you see, I can't make it back there because I don't want to go on top of my fish. Did you notice that in Amos Ferguson's work, nothing overlaps? So we don't want anything to overlap. So I'm going to keep it to about, and you can use, again, measure about this height. And you just draw it, just a bunch of twisty lines. So it's a little bit like drawing a tree. There's no right or wrong way to do this, by the way. So if yours comes out looking a little bit like an alien, that's fine because coral do look like aliens. I think I made mine too big. Let's see if it works. That might be a little bit too big. Yeah, I went and I did that measurement and completely spaced out. Let's do that again. I need to downsize. I think it just looked so amazing. I just wanted it to be much bigger than that. Let's do that again. So you see that sometimes you just have to do things over. And again, that is okay. It is all right to do things over. Now, again, once you do your first one, you can go ahead and cut that out and use it as a template for your second one. Now, I'm just going to freehand mine because I feel very comfortable drawing this. And yeah, and I can move a lot faster that way. But you have more time than I do. So you can go ahead. And cut it out and trace it. All right, there we are. So we have two of the same thing. And now this, because it's so twisty, it's going to take a little bit more concentration. To cut out, because you don't want to cut any of these branches off. So take your time. Again, remember, you don't have to move fast like me because you have a lot more time than I do. You can always come back to this. You can always turn this video on and watch it again. So you don't have to rush at all. Take your time. Now, a little bit. You can see it takes a minute. These scissors, maybe they were too big for these small things, but that is okay. All right, there we go. And I get the bottom. So I'm turning it over so you don't see the pencil line. So you see that? That's one addition. And in the interest of repetition, to honor Mr. Amos Ferguson, we're going to do the second one. Now we have one more thing to add to our healthy ecosystem. One more thing to add to our healthy ecosystem, and then we're done with that side. Our unhealthy ecosystem, again, not going to have much stuff. It's going to look pretty dead because that's what unhealthy ecosystems look like. There's nothing there for the animals to feed on, so they either leave or they die, and nothing looks very nice anymore. Nothing's very pretty anymore, which is a really bad thing because we don't want that to happen, even though it has been happening all the time. All right, so that's my last coral for my healthy ecosystem side. I'm going to stick it down. Remember what I said about the glue? Don't go too crazy with it. You know, you don't want to pour out a flood and then the paper gets really wet and icky and gross looking. That's one side. Try to keep it on the healthy side. And so we do want to at least put something on our unhealthy ecosystem side. So we're going to go over just a little bit. So for those of you on a schedule, just bear with me. So last thing we're going to add, so we want to add some dots to our coral because again, Amos Ferguson is always about patterns and repetition. So, and coral have texture. So we can create texture by adding dots. That adds what we call more visual interest. So when people look at it from far away, it looks like it's rough. And our last thing to add to this is what we call the current, because the sea has what we call a current. That's how the water moves. So those lovely lines in Amos Ferguson's piece showed that. Now, I thought I had a purple marker. Yeah, I did. All right, so I'm going to, just for fun, I'm going to use my purple marker to draw those lines in. And you know, the only thing you need to do is have your lines follow the shape and the movement of your fit. So in this case, you can have it go, you see that? Quick, easy. Short, quick lines. They show a lot of movement. They go around your fish. Everybody see how I'm doing that? It's almost like it's creating almost like a little whirlpool. And again, adds more visual interest because they're not all going in the same direction. So they get really interesting. And you can go all the way around here. Just fill up the space. You know, you don't want, by the time you're done, you don't want to see any white space on your paper. None at all. It should all be filled in because, of course, when we looked at Amos Ferguson's work, there wasn't any white space on that in his painting at all. You see how that's changing that? It's giving it a lot of movement. It's adding some more texture. It's really makes you feel like the fish are swimming. Right? So this is our healthy ecosystem. Things are moving, fish are happy. There's lots of them there together, coexisting, keeping each other alive. Right? So that's our healthy ecosystem side. Let's look at our unhealthy ecosystem. Like our poor unhealthy ecosystem is not going to be as pretty as our healthy ecosystem. So in this case, if you really want to show that it's not happy and thriving, you can use brown to start with. I'm starting from the bottom this time. And I'm just going to do a curve like I did here. Like a little, almost like a half circle for the bottom. And you can put it on the paper to measure so you don't make it too big. Just do a curve. One curved line. And you cut that out. Now, because the coral are dead, they're not bright green, they're not bright anything. So we're going to make them white. And they're going to look kind of broken, and we're going to have broken pieces lying on the floor. And if you want to, you can add a little bit of garbage. little bit of garbage to show that pollution helps to kill that ecosystem. So this is the beginning. Now we get some white construction paper. Here we are. Ah, I can't find it. There we go. There we go. Got it. Here, workspace again. Crazy with mine, you can move it up a little bit. But ours is supposed to be messy, so whatever works for you. And in this case, we're going to draw the coral again, but we're going to be cutting it up a bit. It's not going to be as pretty or as healthy. And again, if you feel comfortable drawing it freehand the way I'm drawing it, that's totally fine. Go right ahead. If you don't, you can draw one and then trace it. I'm just going to do two again. It's like drawing a tree. I mean, coral are just, to me, just underwater trees. And trees are living things. All right. So let's cut that out and then cut that up. We are not going to put any fish on this side because fish generally don't hang around when there's no food. And the corals are dead. There's no food. Oh geez. Okay, hold on. My hand and the scissors are getting caught in the paper. Now, if you want to, you can add some of the lines to show there's a little bit of motion in the water, because even though water is still, there's always still a little bit of movement, even if it's not healthy water, even if the ecosystem is not healthy. So cut it out. And it's okay if you see the pencil lines, because remember what I did with my last coral? I just turned them on the other side so you couldn't see them. All right, that's our first coral. You see how different that looks on that side? It looks like there's not a whole lot of life there. So I'm going to stop with the coral. I'm just going to cut it up a bit so you have broken pieces hanging around, move it down, add a few lines, and then that'll be it. But if you want to, you can add garbage, you can add, you know, a can, some cans, maybe plastic bags, right? Those things that come up with soda cans. So anything that you want to add to represent garbage on the bottom of the ocean floor. But the important thing to remember is that we're not putting that much things over here, because you're not going to find, unless you're putting just a lot of garbage on that side, and that's different. So we're not putting any fish on that side, or conch, or crabs, or jellyfish, because animal life, sea life, will only be found in a healthy ecosystem, and our healthy ecosystem is on this side. So just remember that. Okay, there we go. All right. It's me and the scissors are not doing very well with these very small cutouts. All right. Now, let's do some cutting, because you know, when things break, they fall. So you can just cut pieces off of it. Right? To show that our corals are not doing very well at all. Poor coral. Because that's really what dead corals do. They break apart just like trees. There we are. You can stick this down. Again, go easy on the glue. Are. And then you can stick down the broken pieces of coral. And you notice we're keeping everything on the bottom because things that are dead don't float, right? They don't have any life in them to move around. They don't have any energy. So these corals are no longer alive. So they're just on the bottom of the sea floor. Now, another thing we can do, and this is where lines are very helpful to show what's happening, is that we can add some lines to this side to show that there's movement in the water, that instead of having them moving around the way that we did there, a lot of energy, we can just have them going in one direction. All right, so I'm last touch, I'm gonna take my black marker, I'm gonna leave these as is. You know, you might wanna, if you want to, could add a few dots to show there's still some texture on them. You don't have to, but you can. And remember what I said, if you want to, on the unhealthy ecosystem side, you can add some garbage, you know, some old cans, maybe some buoys. Those of you who go fishing know what a buoy is. And then we can show there's some movement in the current, you know, maybe just some lines. Notice I'm not doing a lot. It doesn't have the same kind of energy as our healthy ecosystem side. It just seems kind of blah, right? It's just there. All right. So this is really just a beginning for you. You can add more fish to this side. You can add more broken coral to this side. You can add some garbage, but this is generally what you're going for. Something that shows the contrast between a healthy ecosystem with lots of plant life and animal life and an unhealthy ecosystem with, in this case, because it's marine, we have to add coral. The lines are not as energetic, you know, they're just kind of going one direction. And there aren't any fish or other animal life there because there's no food there for them. So thank you very much for tuning in. Remember that you can go back to watch this. I've said this several times to just get a little reminder of what we talked about or to look at the templates. And you can and of course, just a reminder to tune in for tomorrow's beginners class as well, because we have lots of really fun activities for you. Now, are there any questions? So we don't have any questions. So thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next week. Really looking forward to see what you are making right now and look forward to seeing your work.
Well, we have two questions actually that just came in. One from Nikki Bush. She asked, can you show us the pic from Amos Ferguson, please?
I certainly can. I'm just gonna turn it around so you can see it. There we are.
And the second question, do you have scientists here in the Bahamas?
We have many scientists in the Bahamas. So a great place to find scientists, especially scientists that work with marine life, but also terrestrial life as well. So that's any life that's on like hard ground, right? Not in the sea. There's the Bahamas, places like the Bahamas National Trust. They have bird specialists there. They have reptile specialists, amphibian specialists. people who work exclusively with marine life, so marine scientists, all of them. There's also the Bass Commission, there's Friends of the Environment, there's BRIEF. So there's a lot of scientists living and working in this country, more than you would believe. And I also think that if you're very interested in learning more about the environment from scientists, you can check out BRIEF's website as well. So it's eARTh. Great. All right. I don't know.